It was the kind of evening that sinks quietly into your soul, soft golden light spilling across the windows, the distant hum of a lawnmower winding down, and a cool breeze brushing against the curtains, as if nature itself were sighing in contentment. I had just made myself a cup of chamomile tea, the steam curling around my fingers like a delicate ghost, and sat on my worn but beloved armchair by the window. It was my sacred ritual, those twilight hours where the world seemed slower, kinder, quieter. I watched children riding bicycles down the street, their laughter echoing like music from a life I used to know. There was something comforting about my routines. The way the kettle always whistled at exactly 6:05. The soft crackle of the old vinyls I played while folding laundry. The way my cat, Daisy, always curled on the exact same corner of the sofa. These were the details that held me together. But behind that calm, behind that perfectly arranged exterior, lived a silence I rarely admitted to anyone. My name is Elise. I'm 42 years old. I live alone. I used to think time would heal the kind of grief I carried, that after a certain number of days, or months, or years, the ache would dull. The memories would fade, and I'd stop checking the other side of the bed each morning of habit. But time doesn't erase, it teaches. It teaches you how to walk around the pain instead of through it. And I had learned to walk alone. Clara and Daniel lived next door. They were the sort of couple that made you believe in gentle love. You know, the type never loud, never showy, just present. They tended to their garden like it was a masterpiece. Clara often left little flower arrangements on neighbors' porches, and Daniel, with his soft voice and kind eyes, always waved when he drove past in his rusted blue pickup. I liked them, but like most neighbors in this modern world, our relationship existed in nods, in brief conversations by the mailbox, in the occasional shared smile across the fence. We were friendly, but distant, until that night. It began with a knock. Not urgent, not frantic, just unexpected. I wasn't expecting anyone, and it wasn't the kind of knock that kids use when they're selling cookies or adults use when they're borrowing sugar. It was firm, purposeful, but somehow hesitant. I set my tea down and walked slowly to the door, wiping my hands on my sweater, and there he was, Daniel, standing alone on my porch. His hair was tousled like he'd run a hand through it too many times. His eyes, they weren't the soft brown I remembered from the last time we waved across the street. They were rimmed, red, tired, weighed down by something unspoken. He was holding something, a small box, wooden, hand-carved, the kind you might find in a grandmother's attic. It looked aged, fragile, and filled with secrets. Daniel asked softly, confused, "Is everything all right?" He next morning arrived like a sigh through the open window, soft, uncertain, delicate. I hadn't slept. Clara's letter had become my anchor overnight, clutched in my hands, even as the world outside drifted into silence. The corners of the paper had softened with my touch, like the texture of grief when it's met with love. There are moments in life that etch themselves into you, forever altering the shape of your soul. Reading Clara's words had done that to me. But even more than her words, it was the realization that someone had seen me, truly seen me, that my quiet life, my ordinary kindness, had whispered into someone else's darkness and reminded them they weren't alone. And now, I had a box full of echoes, of memories, of legacy. I sat on the floor of my living room, cross-legged like a child, the box open beside me, ready to discover more. I needed to feel her again, to understand her better, to let her final message truly sink in. Inside the box, beneath the letter and photograph, was a small cloth pouch, a faded envelope, and a stack of papers tied in twine. I untied the string carefully. These were handwritten journal entries, dozens of them. The first one was dated almost exactly a year ago. I've decided not to tell anyone. Not yet. I need time to absorb this on my own. The word cancer still feels foreign in my mouth, like a visitor refusing to leave. But I've always believed that silence can be a kind of strength, and right now, I need strength. I exhaled slowly. So she had written through it all, processing, enduring, accepting. And as I began reading each entry, it was like watching a woman walk toward the end of her life, not in fear, but in grace. Day after day, Her entries revealed tiny truths. Saw Elise again today. She was wearing that yellow scarf. She always wears soft colors like she wants to blend into the season. I don't think she knows how comforting her presence is. Just seeing her sitting out there, sipping tea, makes the world feel steadier. I coughed today while watering the petunias. Elise looked over. I think she noticed. But she didn't say anything, just smiled at me. That smile, it says, I see you, but I won't ask. I'll let you speak when you're ready. I needed that today more than I thought. I watched her cry once. She was on her porch, late at night. She didn't think anyone could see her, and she cried into her hands like someone who'd held it in for far too long. I cried too, but not because of sadness, because I saw myself in her. Entry after entry revealed a connection had never known existed. We were neighbors, yes, but we were also silent sisters of sorrow. Both of us living parallel lives marked by grief and resilience, both afraid to burden others with our pain. One journal entry stood out among the rest. It was dated just 2 months before she passed.